A Tale of a Muslim Girl and Her Infidel Lover. A novel by Dr. A. Ahmed. This is an intriguing epic story which resonates with love, resilience, courage, and sacrifice. Before we dive into the tapestry of the story, I would like to inform the reader that this novel is narrated in 3 books. Book 1. The beginning of forbidden love between a university Muslim student and her infidel professor. Copyrights. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author, except by a reviewer, who may quote brief paragraphs for a review to be printed in a public newspaper, general magazine, school journal, or university article. This novel is a work of fiction, but the entire story is based on a real life of a Muslim girl in Sudan. All names, characters, places, and events are either the product of the author's imagination or used literary. Any resemblance to real people, living or dead, events or locales is merely coincidental. Chapter 41. A Muslim woman isn't allowed to fall in love or marry a Christian man. The detained Christian lover and his apprehended Muslim apostate girlfriend had spent 4 days in a lockup at the border before they have been transferred to the central prison in Kassala City. Samir was sent to the men's jail and Ibtihal to the women's prison. Until then, no one has identified the lovers. In Sudan and most of the third world countries, there is no such thing called a criminal record or social security number or social insurance number. Someone could commit a hideous crime, and after serving his sentence and being set free, no one would know about his crime anywhere. He could move to another city and live his life like any other citizen. Even if he became a police officer or a mayor in that city, no one would recognize him or expose his crime. In that way, a rapist, a child abuser, or a murderer might become an imam of a mosque, a social worker, or a police commissioner. Even a freed terrorist from a maximum security prison could move to another city, and no one would identify him until he blows his body up into bits and pieces in a crowded public place and takes with him the lives of many innocent people, including their children. Moreover, changing one's identity is as easy as changing one's own clothes. For a couple of US dollars, the most notorious criminal or dangerous terrorist could switch to the identity of the most righteous person in another town. The 2 lovers remained on remand for a few weeks in Kassala jails. After their trial is over, they have been sentenced to 6 months imprisonment. The identities of the 2 intimate lovers would have remained hidden if it weren't for a small mistake done by the Dr. Ibtihal. This incident occurred in their 5th month. One of the inmates got seriously injured after a deadly fight between her and another inmate. The imprisoned Dr. Ibtihal treated her in a professional way. She treated her wounds and stopped her copious bleeding. When the injured woman has been taken to the jail clinic for treatment, the nurse has become amazed by the way she had been treated by another inmate. The nurse wants to know more about the prisoner who did such professional work. In her file, the Dr. Ibtihal is not registered as a nurse or a doctor, but just a normal housewife. The nurse refused to accept that the prisoner who treated the injuries of her patient is just an ordinary woman without any kind of medical training. At the request of that nurse, a thorough investigation has been conducted into the inmate Ibtihal. The investigation took 2 weeks before the hidden identity of Ibtihal was revealed. Since her offense is connected to the offense of her lover, Dr. Samir too has been identified. Immediately, the 2 fugitive lovers were transferred to the capital city and kept in remand under new serious charges related to rebellion and adultery. The entire capital city of Sudan has wakened up the following day with the breaking news that occupied the first page of every newspaper. One of the most popular newspapers preferred to publish the breaking news under this title: Princess Ibtihal Taha Al-Amin and her Christian lover Samir Peter were caught at the Sudanese-Eritrean border while they were escaping out of the country. The royal family objected to this title because they considered Ibtihal to be no more part of the family after she committed so many hideous crimes against the royal family, her god, and caused the horrible death of her father. The royal family convinced Dr. Ibtihal's husband to denounce her publicly and divorce her. They convinced him that she should not be tied to any member of the royal family after her recent shameful act of running away from her house and spending such a long time with a man that is not related to her in any way. Her Muslim husband Tariq succumbed to the pressures of his parents and publicly cut all his ties with his rebellious first Muslim wife Ibtihal and divorced her. Before the lovers were brought to trial, many religious leaders have been interviewed in the media. The common question that is put to every one of them: what is the Islamic punishment for a married Muslim woman who absconded with an unbelieving man and spent with him a long time in the wilderness of Eritrea? Another common question: is it lawful for a Muslim woman to fall in love with a Christian man? Or is it allowed for a Muslim woman to marry an infidel man who is either a Christian or a Jew? Yet another urgent question: could it be possible for a man and a woman to spend many nights together in the wilderness without committing the sin of adultery? The people who asked the last question had backed it up with the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad, in which he said, "It is not possible for a man and a woman to be isolated together without the devil being their third partner." The Messenger of Allah also said, "The woman comes in the form of Satan and retreats in the form of the devil." No good Muslim woman would do such an abomination as the disobedient wife Ibtihal has done by being a girlfriend to an infidel Christian man while she was having a lawful Muslim husband. A Muslim woman is neither allowed to fall in love nor marry an infidel man, whether he is a Jew or a Christian. This restriction is imposed by the Holy Scripture of Muslims. The Quran says, "O ye who believe, take not the Jews and the Christians for friends. They are friends with one another. And whoso among you takes them for friends is indeed one of them. Verily, Allah guides not the unjust people." Surah Al-Ma'idah 5, verse 52. The eminent Muslim scholar, Sheikh Muhammad al-Hanudi, a member of the North American Council, states, "If Allah is the one who prohibits a Muslim woman from marrying a non-Muslim, then we as Muslims are supposed to believe it and to take it. As a matter of faith, you cannot become a Muslim unless you accept everything when it is ordained by Allah or carried out by His Messenger." The Quran says, "O ye who believe, put not yourselves forward before Allah and His Messenger." Surah Al-Hujurat 49, verse 1. Also, the prominent Muslim scholar, Sheikh Yusuf al-Qaradawi, in his well-known book, The Halal and the Haram, the Lawful and the Prohibited in Islam, states, "It is haram, forbidden, for a Muslim woman to marry a non-Muslim man, regardless of whether he is of the people of the book Jews and Christians or not." We have already mentioned the saying of Allah, "And do not marry your girls to idolaters until they believe." See Surah Al-Baqarah 2, verse 221. And He also said concerning the immigrant Muslim women, "Then if you know them to be believers, do not send them back to the unbelievers. They are not lawful for them as wives, nor are they lawful for them as husbands." See Surah Al-Mumtahina 60, verse 10. Accordingly, the Muslim woman Ibtihal had broken the commandment of her holy Quran by doing many abominable deeds. Firstly, she took an infidel Christian man as a boyfriend or lover. Secondly, the verse said, by taking a Christian man as her boyfriend, she had become indeed one of them, the infidel Christians. In other words, she took one step towards becoming an apostate girl. Thirdly, worse than that, she had done that while she was still married to a Muslim man by the name of Tariq. The first question has received conflicting and contradictory answers. One Muslim leader said such a woman should be stoned to death. An imam of a big mosque said she should be flogged 100 lashes and then stoned to death. This virtuous Maulana who came up with this double punishment has based his argument on the fourth rightly guided Caliph Ali ibn Abi Talib, who ordered during his reign an adulterous married woman to be whipped 100 lashes, and then he ordered her to be stoned to death. Yet another leader argued that such a woman should be given 200 lashes and 6 months in jail. This righteous man of Allah borrowed this ruling from the case of a married Saudi woman, who was gang-raped after she was found sitting in a car with a man other than her husband. Regarding the second question, all the religious leaders collectively agreed that it is unlawful in the Sharia for a Muslim woman to fall in love with a Christian man. They based their objection on the fact that Islam does not allow a Muslim woman to marry a non-Muslim man. However, all of them said, it is objectionable for a Muslim man to fall in love with a Christian woman if such a relationship is not meant for marriage. Islam allows a Muslim man to marry a Jewish girl or a Christian woman. A Muslim woman in no uncertain terms is not allowed to marry a Christian man or Jewish guy. If she does that, their marital relationship is adultery and their children will be considered bastards or illegitimate. Such a rebellious Muslim woman must be condemned as adulteress, and she should get stoned to death. Regarding the third question, which it said, could it be possible for a man and a woman to spend many nights together in the wilderness without committing the sin of adultery? All the religious clerics answered this question by saying it was not possible. However, some enlightened Muslim intellectuals are reluctant to say that such a married Muslim woman who spent many nights in the wilderness with an infidel man who is other than her lawful husband deserved to be stoned to death. Their main argument against the stoning sentence is based on Islamic law, which said adultery can be proved through four witnesses, confession, or pregnancy. If none of these three criteria is available at the time of the trial, then the Sharia court must not order the stoning of such a rebellious Muslim wife. Chapter 42. The media interview with Princess Ibtihal and charges of rebellion and adultery. The new daring romantic adventure that led Dr. Ibtihal to defy the Sharia court order, her royal family, and the Islamic religion of her country, and eloped with her infidel Christian lover has astonished many people. Many Sudanese journalists and other foreign and Arab media people want to know what is special about the Christian man Dr. Samir, that made such a dignified and beautiful young married woman from the royal family fall madly in love with him, and to take such dangerous risks by forsaking her Muslim husband Tariq and eloping with him. For those media people, the life of Dr. Ibtihal is an open book. They want to know more about her Christian lover Samir apart from being a famous medical doctor and a Christian man. In digging into his family background, the media made a startling discovery that made the case of Princess Ibtihal more unique and exceedingly rare. They found out his father is an African Sudanese from the tribe of Azanda. It has never happened before an Arab Sudanese girl from such an illustrious family fell in love with a man from the south of Sudan. It is something unlikely to happen even on any of over 2 billion planets in our galaxy or even in the hereafter. A Sudanese Arab Muslim girl falling madly in love with an African Christian infidel man is something incredible in Sudan. An Arab girl may fall in love with a monkey but not with an African man. Likewise, her Arab parents may agree to marry her to a pig or a dog, but not to a Sudanese man whose father is from the south of Sudan. Arabs are the most racist people on the surface of planet Earth when it comes to matrimony. Therefore, the Arab Sudanese are astonished when they came to know that Dr. Samir's father is a southerner. The members of the royal family could not comprehend why one of their most beautiful and intelligent daughters could do such a disgraceful act. Some of the male cousins of Ibtihal have made a vow by placing their right hands on the Holy Quran that they will do anything they can to stop their royal daughter to marry an African infidel man like Samir Peter. A human rights activist and a member of a feminist group somehow managed to have access to Dr. Ibtihal and interviewed her while she is in jail waiting for her trial. This interview had been published in a communist-banned newspaper in Sudan called Al Maidan. This newspaper has its headquarters in London City, in the UK. Sometimes, adventurous people take the risk of smuggling copies of this newspaper inside Sudan. One can be hanged to death if he is caught having this banned newspaper. To understand the effect of that astounding discovery made by some media people, I would like to mention some selected questions and answers from that personal interview. The interviewer introduced herself to the suspect Ibtihal Taha Al-Amin before she began her audacious interview. My name is Sulwa Abdulaziz Al-Junaid. I am a human rights activist and also an active member of the Sudanese feminist group. I would like to conduct an interview with you. This interview will be published in Europe. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions about your love affair with Dr. Samir? I don't mind, replied the Dr. Ibtihal politely. How did you come to know the Christian man, Dr. Samir? I came to know him while I was doing my medical training in Soba Hospital. He used to be one of the senior doctors who trained me at the hospital. Did you fall in love with him at first sight, or did it take you some time to know him before you had that feeling for him? I admired his personality from day one. Also, I fell in love with him from that day, but I remained in a state of self-denial for some time. Why did you deny his love in the beginning? I made a promise to my father that I would not fall in love with a man while I was doing my studies. Why did you make a promise like that to your father? In fact, my father made me make that promise to him before he allowed me to go all alone to the capital city. You did not want to break your promise to your father, and that was why you remained in a state of denial to your love. At that time, I was so obsessed and controlled by the fear of dishonoring the name of my father. I don't want to go deep into your father and his honor. I just want to go straight to some controversial issues in your love affair with the Christian man, Dr. Samir. Knowing that it is impermissible in Islamic Sharia for a Muslim girl to marry a Christian man, had you ever considered that restriction before you fell in love with your so-called infidel lover? I did not know that he is a Christian until I fell in love with him. If you knew it in advance, would you still fall in love with him? Yes, I would. Love doesn't come by choice. It just happens. Excellent answer, and I really like it. Thank you. What about Dr. Samir? Did he know that you are a Muslim girl, and he still fell in love with you? Yes, he did. Okay, Ibtihal. By the way, do you like me to call you Dr. Ibtihal or Princess Ibtihal? Whatever you like. It makes no difference to me. I love to call you Princess because that is what you are. That is okay with me. You can call me any way you like. Okay, Princess Ibtihal, I want to ask you two questions based on the recent developments in your love affair. The first question, knowing that you are a married Muslim woman, how come you just left your husband and run away with your Christian lover? Let me qualify my question. What did you intend to do? Have you decided to go against your religious law and social norms and marry your Christian lover while you are still bonded to a lawful marital relationship with a Muslim man? The shrewd mind of Ibtihal quickly perceived that her interviewer had asked her an extremely tricky question. She knows that if she reveals her apostasy from Islam and conversion to Christianity at this stage, she will pass the death sentence on herself. On the other hand, if she says she intended to break her religious and social laws, she will be disgraced and condemned as an unfaithful wife and an apostate Muslim woman. To avoid falling into that trap, she has turned the question back to her interviewer. If you were in my place, what would you do? Would you choose to continue living with an abusive husband who beats and rapes you daily, or your lover who looks at you as his queen of beauty and treats you as a human being with equal rights and dignity as himself? I would choose to be with my lover, of course. What is your second question? My second question has something to do with race. Knowing that your husband is an African Sudanese from the south of Sudan, and from the Azanda tribe, whereas you are an Arab Sudanese girl from the tribe of Aldanagla, and most probably no one from your family would accept such a relationship. Had you ever considered the consequences of such an unacceptable social and racial problem? Dr. Ibtihal is shocked when she came to know for the first time that Dr. Samir is an African Sudanese, and not an Arab Sudanese from a Coptic background. The interviewer girl perceived the shock on the face of Princess Ibtihal and understood the reason. Have I disclosed to you something you have not known before about your lover? Yes, you had revealed something I hadn't known except today. Even if I knew it before, still that would not stop me from falling in love with him. Genuine love should not be based on religion or race. You are an amazing girl. I am really proud of you. But do you know that your lover's mother is a Coptic Christian from Egypt? I didn't know that either. But no matter which racial and religious background Dr. Samir is belonging to, still I love him. The Sudanese Human Rights Office in Khartoum wanted to represent you in court by appointing a lawyer for you, but unfortunately the Sharia court turned down their request. I appreciate their willingness to help me, but I just trust God to be with me. Do you still believe in God? I will never turn my back on God. Does not that seem contradictory to you? It is not at all. The interviewer wants to dig more into that question to clarify the contradiction, but she has been told by the guards that her visiting time is over, and they have kicked her out. Chapter 43. It is an unfair and biased judgment. The Sharia court delayed the trial of the apprehended lovers for a couple of months. Some narrators of the story said that the delay had been caused by the sharp disagreements between the religious leaders and Muslim scholars about the punishment of the unfaithful and rebellious wife. The court consulted many religious scholars to come up with a judgment that can satisfy everyone. On the trial day, the Sharia court has closed its doors on everyone except some well-known top officials in the government and some eminent Muslim leaders and great renowned religious scholars. Some Egyptian scholars from the greatest Islamic learning institute known as Al-Azhar Al-Sharif University have been also invited to attend such an important trial. Even though those dignified persons have been carefully selected, still many popular Muslim leaders are left out. The court is guarded by heavy security. No one is allowed to come 100 meters closer to the court building. All four streets that lead to the court are closed. Even so, the Sharia court allowed the media inside the courtroom. Before the judge and his assistants entered the courtroom, the two suspects, the Muslim suspect Dr. Ibtihal and her Christian lover Dr. Samir, are brought in. This time, both suspects are in chains. Both looked calm and confident. They don't look worried or frightened. Shortly after them, a group of religious men entered the courtroom. All of them sat around a long table. Everyone knew those are the judges. This time, the judge who presided over the previous case has been changed. A new Maulana who looked older and more pious than the former one occupied the judgment seat. The new judge doesn't look like a Sudanese man at all. Most probably, he is an Egyptian. He is surrounded by 8 assistants. A white turban wrapped his head all around. If it is unfolded, it might measure 100 meters long. He has a long white beard that reached down to the table placed in front of him. He is carrying a big stick in his right hand and a prayer rosary in the other hand. He appeared sad, mad, angry, and serious. He had already had a predetermined judgment on the two suspects. This time, no charges were read before Maulana began to speak. Usually, at the Sharia court, the suspect would not be given a chance to speak and defend himself or herself. Notwithstanding, the new judge for the first time in the history of the Sharia court broke that rule. He began the trial by questioning the suspect Dr. Ibtihal. "Are you a Muslim woman?" asked Maulana harshly. "My religion is my relationship with God," replied the suspect with full confidence. "Do you believe that Muhammad, may the prayers and peace of Allah be upon him, is the messenger of God? Is there anyone who heard me speaking against Islam, or the Prophet Muhammad? I don't want you to give me vague and gray answers. Answer each question whether white or black. I am asking you direct and clear questions, and I expect you to answer likewise. Now tell the court, if you are a Muslim woman, why did you forsake your lawful husband and run away with an unbelieving Christian man who is neither your father nor brother? All people are equal regardless of their religion, race, and gender. Who told you that all people are equal? The Constitution of Sudan and the Charter of Human Rights. The Constitution of Sudan had been created by the British colonists, and the so-called Charter of Human Rights are contradicting the Sharia laws which are based on the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of his beloved Prophet Muhammad. In the Islamic Sharia, which has been drawn from the Holy Quran and the blessed Sunnah of our infallible Prophet Muhammad, which have been divinely revealed to him by God Almighty, the Muslim and non-Muslim are not equal, man and woman are not equal, and a free man and slave are not equal. Then the virtuous Maulana waited for the suspected woman Ibtihal to challenge his words. When she did not answer him, he looked at the Muslim leaders, scholars, and the VIP of the government to see if anyone has an objection to what he has said. When no one spoke a word against him, he continued to question the suspected Dr. Ibtihal. Know you not that a Muslim woman cannot marry a Christian man? Yes, I know that already. Then why did you run away with this infidel Christian? Because I love him. Do you want to marry him and go against the restriction of God? Yes, if I can do it, I will marry him. You were already a married Muslim woman. I had been compelled to marry the Muslim man. I love the Christian man Samir, and sooner or later I am going to marry him. The judge wanted to stand and grabbing a chair, running to the blasphemous woman, and executing the judgment of God and his prophet by killing her inside the courtroom. Therefore, he controlled his boiling anger and continued his interrogation. Know you not that if you sleep with this infidel man you will be committing adultery? If I marry him, I will not be committing adultery. Have you already committed adultery with him? No, I haven't. Who is going to conduct your marriage with him? His infidel priest or Donald Trump? God and not a human being can unite us together in a lawful holy matrimonial relationship. Do you expect God Almighty to leave his throne and come down to conduct your marriage with this unbelieving man? Dr. Samir is not an unbeliever. He is a Christian and hence he is following a heavenly inspired religion. Have you not read the verse of the Quran that said the Christians are infidels because they say Christ Jesus the Son of Mary is God in Surah Al-Ma'idah 5, verse 17? I have no right to condemn anyone who believes in God. That means you are a rebellious wife and stubborn Muslim woman who is not going to listen to anyone. You have your own distorted understanding of Islam. I listen to my conscience and follow my mind only. Maulana understood he cannot convince the rebellious Muslim woman because the devil possesses her mind as he believes. Therefore, he shifted his face from her daring look and began to question her Christian lover Dr. Samir. Do you know that this woman is married to a Muslim man? She married him after we fell in love. She had been forced by her father to marry her cousin against her wish. I have not asked you to tell me about her father or cousin. My question is direct and clear. When she ran away with you, did you know that she is a married woman? Yes, I did. Why did you take someone's wife and absconded with her? Because I loved her before she got married to him, and I continued to love her while she is married, and still I am in love with her until today. What was your plan after you took her from her husband and ran away with her? Our plan was to escape to a secular country where there is no Sharia law so we can lawfully get married and be with each other as a husband and a wife. You wanted to marry her even though you know she is a married woman. Dr. Samir preferred not to answer the last question of Maulana. Have you slept with this woman? I haven't. Are you going to contact this Muslim married woman again? Dr. Samir once again preferred not to answer the question. Maulana looked at him seriously and angrily, and then began to render his judgment on him. Based on the evidence and the confession of this Christian man, this court finds him guilty of illicit relation with a married Muslim woman. The court likewise finds him guilty of kidnapping a married Muslim woman and illegally cohabiting with her. Accordingly, this court sentenced Samir Peter to 100 lashes and 12 months imprisonment under hard labor. After that, the so-called just judge turned his face toward the rebellious Muslim wife Ibtihal and began to address her. You were unfaithful wife to your Muslim husband, rebellious to your religion, and disrespectful to your family. Through your shameful behavior, you had disgraced the righteous name of your Muslim father, who was a great imam of the biggest mosque in your city, and you caused his untimely death. You had defied the order of the Sharia court, and eloped with an infidel man. Based on your confession, this court finds you guilty of infidelity and immoral behavior. Maulana has paused for a while, and then rendered his sentence against the so-called rebellious Muslim wife. Therefore, this court sentences you to 53 lashes. It is an unfair and biased judgment, shouted the Dr. Ibtihal. Dr. Samir had not kidnapped me. It was me who asked him to run away with me. Therefore, my lover Samir is not guilty of kidnap and adultery. You shouldn't have given him more punishment than me. You have done that because he is a Christian man. Nevertheless, the objection of the Dr. Ibtihal and pleading have fallen on deaf ears. Before she finished her words, the judge of the Sharia court and his assistants have emerged out of the courtroom surrounded by a dozen of policemen. When she realized that the judge had left without listening to her objection and protest, Dr. Ibtihal has fallen on her knees and prostrated on the floor, and began to cry loudly. Then her guards forced her to stand against her wish and forcibly dragged her out of the courtroom. Likewise, the unjustly condemned Christian man Samir has been dragged out by a bunch of armed guards. Chapter 44. The crime of an honor killing. It is after those unfair and unequal two verdicts against a beloved Muslim woman and her Christian lover by the Sharia court the reader will find the Muslim writers and Christian narrators have parted ways and never come together again. The Christian narrators interpreted the sentence of Dr. Samir as a biased and hence gross injustice. They argued that Dr. Ibtihal was the one who forced Dr. Samir to run away with her. On the other hand, the Muslim narrators found the sentence of Dr. Samir to be fair, but they raised objections against the lenient verdict that Maulana passed against the rebellious and adulterous Muslim wife. I am not going to involve myself in those fruitless religious disputes. Whatever way the two judgments are interpreted, the decision of the Sharia court cannot be changed or revoked by any authority on heaven above or on earth below. As the Muslims collectively believe and say, those judgments had been divinely revealed by God to their infallible prophet Muhammad. Therefore, the public received the outcome of the trial with a mixture of passions. Most of the people found the court to be fair in finding the Christian man guilty of kidnap and adultery, but criticized it for not passing the stoning sentence on the unfaithful and adulterous wife. If the reader can be able to strip himself from any religious bias and look at the two rulings as a disinterested judge, then he might make a startling discovery. He will discover that cunning Maulana had many things in mind when he rendered those two unequal verdicts. First of all, his main goal is to put an end to that abominable love affair between a Muslim married woman and an infidel Christian man. He thought by sentencing the Christian lover to 100 lashes, he shall kill him through whipping and end their anti-Islamic love affair. In other words, he expected Dr. Samir to be whipped to death. Maulana for sure had in mind the story of the second Caliph Omar ibn al-Khattab, who sentenced his son to 80 lashes for drinking alcohol. Although the son died at the 60th whip, the Caliph insisted that the whipping should continue until all lashes were completed. Therefore, Caliph Omar is called the justest judge ever to walk on the surface of the earth. For that reason, he was nicknamed after his death Omar al-Faruq, which means Omar the Just. Therefore, in case Dr. Samir can miraculously survive those 100 cruel beatings, then Maulana most probably expected that the 1-year confinement will separate the lovers for so long and kill their genuine love. Moreover, as an infidel Christian man who dared to kidnap a married Muslim wife from her lawful Muslim husband and committed adultery with her, the Christian lover had done a great abomination in Islam. Furthermore, Dr. Samir may be murdered inside the jail by some Muslim inmates for daring as an uncircumcised infidel man to have sex with the pussy of a genitally mutilated Muslima, and permanently defiling her holy and pure body. As if his uncircumcised penis is a virus that entered a circumcised pussy or a computer of a genitally mutilated Muslima. Additionally, to know what was going on in the mind of that cunning judge, one should ask himself, why did he give the rebellious Muslim wife a light sentence? I don't think the reason, as some Christian narrators would insist, is having compassion for her because she is a Muslima like him. Most probably, the despicable Maulana had considered the possibility of honor killing when he passed that lenient verdict against the Princess Ibtihal. He anticipated that her Muslim husband or other family members may kill her for bringing such intolerable shame to the name of her father and the royal family. From his words, one can say Maulana had done his homework before he came to court. He studied the former two trials of Dr. Ibtihal, and he came to know her abominable deeds had caused her father, who was the imam of the biggest mosque in her city, to receive a major heart attack and died inside the courtroom. Moreover, her adulterous and shameful deeds had brought great shame to her royal family. If she would not stop, she might deliver an illegitimate baby by sleeping with her Christian lover while she was having a Muslim husband. Accordingly, this time, the cunning Maulana had expected that the fallen Princess Ibtihal to be slain in an honor killing after her last abominable deed of eloping with an infidel man and spending days and nights with him in the wilderness of Eritrea, and had committed adultery. Whether that was what was on the mind of the judge, or not, that is exactly what happened after the imprisoned Dr. Ibtihal had been released from prison. After she received her 53 lashes for the second time, she was allowed to leave the women's prison. As soon as she emerged out of the main gate of the prison, a gunman fired 3 shots at her. The first bullet missed her, and the other 2 hit her in the chest. She had fallen in front of the prison gate. One of the prison guards saw the gunman and fired at him. The bullet had hit the gunman in his head and killed him instantly. Shortly after, the victim and her assailant were both rushed to the hospital. The shooter was declared dead before his body reached the hospital. Later, the police identified him as a cousin of Princess Ibtihal. He was her former brother-in-law and her husband's elder brother. Dr. Ibtihal was in critical condition when she had been brought to the hospital. From the emergency unit, she had been transferred to the operating theater. It took her surgeon 4 hours to conduct her surgery. Then the bullets were removed from her chest. One of the 2 bullets missed her heart by a couple of inches. The other bullet was not too far from her heart. Although the bullets were removed from her body, the dissident princess and the so-called rebellious wife Ibtihal remained in a comatose state. She was transferred to the intensive care unit. Her doctor did not expect her to live for long. For 5 days, Princess Ibtihal's soul had remained hanging between life and death. During those days, the police authority had placed some fully armed guards in front of her room. The police had anticipated that another cousin might come to the hospital to finish the job of her honor killing. Nonetheless, during that period no one ever came to visit her. On the 6th day, miraculously Dr. Ibtihal was able to come out of her long coma and open her eyes. It took her quite a long time to recollect what had happened on the day she was set free. She remembered someone had fired a bullet at her from point-blank range. After that, she remembered nothing. Despite that, she guessed her assailant either her former Muslim husband Tariq or one of her cousins. Chapter 45. Look for his parents. The health recovery of the dissident Princess Ibtihal was slow and took a long time. She spent 1 full month in the hospital before she finally got discharged. While she was lying in the hospital, she was nerve-wracking about the fate of her unjustly condemned lover. She did not know what had happened to him. She prayed often for his safety. She blamed herself for her hasty plan of elopement. She regretted that she forced such a foolish and risky plan on her lover who refused it at the beginning. Dr. Ibtihal knew and understood that her life was going to be meaningless and aimless without Dr. Samir. She had no one left for her except him. As soon as she was discharged from the hospital, she went to the man's prison and tried to find out what had happened to him after their trial. The jail authority refused to disclose any information about her imprisoned Christian lover. Even so, she did not give up until she had been kicked out and threatened that she would be thrown behind bars if she ever returned again. After that, she didn't know what to do to get information about her infidel lover. She knew he had been sentenced to 1 year imprisonment, but she wanted to know what had happened to him after he was whipped 100 lashes. She had not much knowledge about his personal life. She did not know where he used to live, and with whom he used to stay. He had not told her anything about his father and mother. She had never asked him about his Christian family. She did not know whether he had brothers and sisters or not. She also didn't know whether his parents were alive or dead. In those wonderful days, she was interested in converting him to Islam. She knew only about his medical profession, and where he was working. He had never asked her one day to accompany him to his house. The only thing he gave her was his cell phone number. He told her to contact him whenever she wanted to talk to him or meet him. She dialed that number many times, but no one picked up the phone. She then tried to search for his address through the internet, but she discovered that his phone number was unlisted. After that, Dr. Ibtihal remembered her interview with the human rights activist who visited her in jail. From that young woman, she came to know that her lover is originally from the south of Sudan. Then Dr. Ibtihal understood why her lover kept his parents' identities hidden from her. She thought, most probably, he expected she might leave him if she came to know that he was not an Arab man, but an African Sudanese from the south of Sudan. She knew and understood that no Arab girl can fall in love and marry a southern Sudanese guy no matter how he is rich, handsome, or how highly educated man. Thinking of her lover's religious and racial background, she began to understand why her lover was not interested in beginning to pursue their love friendship. No matter what good position he is occupying, or how many university certificates he achieved in life, she knows her father would never have accepted him as a husband to his Arab daughter, when if he comes to know he is not an Arab, but a Southerner. Even if he is an extraordinary devout and pious Muslim man, still her royal family would have not considered him a suitable husband to their Arab daughter. And if she defied them and continued her love affair with such an infidel African man, then her family members would have tried to slay her in honor killing and burn her corpse. She knew now that was exactly what one of her male relatives had done that. Therefore, Dr. Ibtihal knows that her life is still in imminent danger. She guessed that the person who attempted to kill her was most probably one of her close relatives. She understood that her family would not rest until they appeased their anger by killing her. She concluded that her only chance of survival was to go underground. She thought the person who shot her would still be looking for her. She didn't know her assailant was shot and killed by one of the prison guards. She had Northwest safe place in the capital city. She could not go back to her work without risking her life. Her family members could easily track her down and shoot and kill her while she is inside or coming and going out of Soba Hospital. As a single young woman, no landlord will agree to give her an apartment to rent. Finally, Dr. Ibtihal went back to her girlfriend, Dr. Samira, and requested her to keep her in her house again. She even proposed to pay rent for her accommodation. Unfortunately, this time, her friend refused to keep her in her house. She told her that her presence in her residence would increase the wrath of many Muslim people from her family side and her husband's family side. Besides that, her friend told her that her existence in their house would expose her family to imminent danger. Through the media, Dr. Samira came to know that Dr. Ibtihal had miraculously escaped an assassination attempt by one of her male cousins. She expected that those vengeful cousins may come after her friend if they came to know she is hiding in her house. Another undeclared reason which led her Muslim girlfriend not to give her a temporary shelter is her so-called unacceptable and abominable love affair with an infidel Christian man. Both Dr. Samira and her husband decided not to help a Muslim woman who cheated on her Muslim husband and eloped with an infidel Christian man and committed adultery with him. By the way, after the mock trial of the Sharia court, everybody concluded that the rebellious wife had sex with her infidel Christian lover Samir and defiled her married life. When her friend refused to keep her, Dr. Ibtihal felt she had become like an outcast girl in Hindu society. Where should she go? That question bothered her so much. She wished that the judge of the Sharia court had sentenced her to 1 year imprisonment instead of giving her a whipping sentence and sending her to the streets. In that desperate situation, the Muslim apostate woman Dr. Ibtihal remembered God. She decided to talk to that voice that she spoke to her while she was in jail. She remembered the promise she received from him that day. She whispered a short prayer to that voice. You had promised me when you talked to me in jail, you said, you will never leave me, never deny me, and never put me to shame. Now I am a lonely and homeless woman. I cannot live as a homeless woman in a Muslim society. My life is in danger. Please remember your promise and help me. As soon as she made that prayer, Dr. Ibtihal heard a deep voice coming out of her mind saying to her, look for his parents. But this time, it is the voice of a woman. She opened her eyes and looked around. There is no one near her. She is still sitting under the shade of the wall of her friend Samira's house. Although this time she doesn't hear the voice speaking to her, as it did when she was in her cell at the women's prison, still she has jumped to the conclusion that it is the Lord Jesus who has talked to her again in a feminine voice. Being a novice Christian, Dr. Ibtihal has not yet grown up in her faith. She could not distinguish between the voice of the Holy Spirit from the voice of Satan the devil. She has concluded that the Lord wants her to find her lover's parents and go and live with them until he completes his 1 year sentence and gets released from prison. Accordingly, she has decided to travel to the south of Sudan and search for her lover's parents. But what is their address? How can she go there? The south of Sudan has many provinces. Which province should she go to? Each province has many cities. Which city should she travel to? Every city has thousands of houses. Which house should she look for? Those questions and many more have bothered Dr. Ibtihal. She also told herself that Dr. Samir's parents are living with him in Khartoum. She then tried to communicate with that woman's voice again, but she couldn't. She concluded that she might have just imagined that someone had talked to her. If it is the same voice that he talked to her before, why did he not make things clearer to her? Furthermore, why should the Lord expect her to search for a house without giving her the name of the province, city, and address of her lover's parents? Why should he expect her to guess things by herself? Even if she takes the risk and travels to the south and finds them, his Christian family may hold her responsible for what had happened to their beloved son Dr. Samir. For those reasons, Dr. Ibtihal has convinced herself not to go to the south of Sudan.